Alrighty, final project. We're gonna make a plush something or other. In this case, I'm gonna make a little rubber ducky. Again, project is some sort of like soft featured animal. Think like think like rubber toys, Pokemon, soft plushie. You can certainly distort them, kind of make them the little like squishy, adorable versions of whatever you want. Are not looking for super fine detail because Fusion isn't really ideal for that. Can you add fine detail? Absolutely, but that's not really the focus of this project. So let me hop over to Fusion and we'll run through what I'm talking about here. All right, so obviously the old blank screen. I'm going to make rubber ducky. So first off, save, example, rubber duck. Rubber ducks, sure, rubber ducks. Now you can start with images if you like. You can start with your own drawings if you like. Or in this case, I'm going to start with some stock images. So I'm going to open up insert canvas, insert from computer. And I'm going to start with the old rubber duck. Now, I found you can something like this ubiquitous enough. You can find stock images of all three sides. So starting with side image. Okay, obviously that's a little tiny. First, let's go ahead and calibrate this canvas. That'll give me a much better idea. Rubber duck, great. Right click, calibrate. How big should a rubber duck be from side to side? Probably bigger than 8 millimeters. That's rather tiny. Although 80 seems about right. 8 centimeters, 80 millimeters. Yeah, sure. Suddenly giant, but that's okay. Resize. Okay. Now I do have other canvases. So what I can do is go ahead and insert more. So with this one, I'll go from front. And this just is because I happen to have canvases for that. All right. So outright, I can already start to scale this to try to fit. But that gets a little awkward. But it does make sometimes a little bit easier to try to scale one to the other. Or obviously, you can try to get this to match up. Now, we're definitely going to freeform a bit from here, so I'm not worried about this being exactly the same. That's quite all right. But just trying to get this lined up, as you see. That's not bad. Okay, that works. Okay. And the last one I have is I'm going to work from also the top. So top view, there we go. Orbiting up. There we go. All right, let's scale this up. Now, outright, wrong directions, rotate it 90 degrees. All righty. And we're going to try to get this about right. Again, sometimes you can kind of over-constrain yourself with adding too many reference images. I just wanted to show you how you can work with this. Now, outright, this top view duck, you can see it's not centered. It's not actually like an orthographic image, meaning it's not like straight up and down without perspective. It's going to have a little bit of distortion. So, get it as close as you can. These are very much intended to be references. So, yeah, that works. Okay, I have my multi-view, rather confusing ducks in a row. Yeah, it's unavoidable sometimes. All right. So if this gets too confusing, or you don't feel like you need this many images, or you just want to freeform it, whatever. I just wanted to show you how to go about doing this. So that is very confusing. I'm going to I'm going to go back to one. All right. So let's save real quick. Canvases. And let's start making a form. So entering the form workspace. Now, I recommend at least kind of experimenting with this a little bit. Obviously, you have whatever ideas you like. You can start however you want. And then if you decide you don't like where it's going, try a different shape. In this case, I'm going to create this using a quad ball and a sphere. I'm going to go over why I'm choosing those. So I'm going to use a quad ball to start with. Quad ball, again, just meaning that it's a more, rather than being a sphere like a globe with longitudinal and latitudinal lines, it's like a cube that has been inflated to a sphere. That's all. Now, technically this really wouldn't matter where I'm starting because I'm starting right in the center, but I do want to actually pan this, be able to pan this around the shape. So I'm going to start it on the X or the YZ plane. There we are. So this is now locking it because I'm working on my canvas on the YZ plane. Makes a lot of sense to have the image on the Y or the starting of the YZ plane. Now you can just start this kind of wherever. I'm going to expand it to roughly the size. I just realized that I still have my view different, so that's why it's showing it just as a ball instead of with the actual edges. There we go. Hidden edges visible. Now, like I said, you do want to start simply. You can absolutely add face. You can divide up faces. You can delete, add faces, edges, whatever. But start simply and add complexity later. It makes things so much easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of make this ball, this quad ball, about the size of the body in general. That looks okay-ish. Sure. Now you can absolutely add symmetry here if you want. Yep, I want mirror symmetry. Does it work along the length? Nope. Width? Nope. Height? Yes. I want that green line bisecting the left and right sides. That works. If you forget to do that, remember, you can always go to symmetry and apply symmetry later. Now, I'm not going to do this right here. If I do it that way, it's going to give me an error because I can't have symmetry on top of symmetry. But that's how you'd go about it anyhow. So cancel, it's fine. Okay. Now, I have my little ball here, and just to see if it shows up a little easier, I'm going to shift to auto color mode. So shift November. There you go. It's a little turquoise. So that makes it a little bit easier to see. All right. Now, how do I go from quad ball to duck? Form edit. So from here, just kind of start squishing it around. You might find that you prefer to work with some selection filters more than others. Right now, I have all options available. So I have faces. I can select by edges. I can select by vertices. Sometimes I kind of prefer to work with vertices. Sometimes I prefer to work with faces. Edges is when I'm trying to pull like fine lines or finer lines. So you be the judge of that. But first, I think I'm just going to kind of squish the top here. So I'm going to select, hold shift, select both of those. There we go. And just squishing that down. So this is going to be very much just kind of smushing things around as you go. So kind of right about there. I can select back here, drag it backwards, drag the front, drag that forward. You can very quickly see where I'm going with this. Now, the issue is selecting by faces sometimes is a little bit rough in that you see how quickly I start to shape that. Now I kind of need to work a little bit more fine. It might be best to work by vertice selection because here, now I can just select by just those vertices and I'm just making adjustments to that little section rather than the whole face. You be the judge. So yeah, I'm just going to do some all selection and pan around. Now, the reason I am working just in this view, when you start to work at a more complex shape, before we worked with more of a flat surface, just working with a plane, and then we moved it up in multiple dimensions, and then we added thickness to give it an actual 3 dimension, stuff like that. I highly recommend working from one view and then moving to others and then fine tuning. This is kind of the visual version of keeping it simple and adding complexity later. So right now, just working from the side. Because if I orbit over, yep, there's definitely going to be some adjustments to be made because it just looks like a bar of soap from this side. So let's stick to working from the side view. I'm actually going to use an additional form to create the head. So right now, I'm just focusing on the body. So just kind of panning up. Now, I can't just drag all the way up because you see it's going to throw everything off. So I'm going to kind of just pull up here. Now is when I'm going to start to add some complexity to it. So I kind of like where that looks. It's pretty close. It doesn't have to be everything. Again, you can make your duck however you want. I'm going to tweak this in a minute anyhow, but I want to make that tail. So to do that, I can't just drag that edge up as you saw, and I can't drag the face up because that's much too large. So what I need to do is divide up some of these faces to give myself a little bit more detail. So that's where one of the other default ones comes in, or at the top, insert edge. Insert edge is extremely helpful in now dividing up the shape. So I want this edge, and of course, because it's mirrored, it's going to affect this side as well. Oops. Or you can just double click it and it'll show it, and it shows it anyhow. It'll appear anyhow, but double click it, you got both. Now you see the green line, it's appearing just on that side. If I wanted it only up here, just use the slider. And remember that numerically, it goes from 0 to 1. 0 being the edge you selected, 1 being the next closest similar edge. Negative, it just goes the opposite direction. You do have options. Selection mode, you can have single or both, and it'll put 2 lines, and it's going to make them symmetrically on both sides of that line. But I don't actually want that. I just want to divide up here right now. So just going to go with single, and we'll put it, you know what, right about in the middle. So might as well -0.5. Sure, there we go. Hit OK. And now starts to divide up. All right, now we got somewhere. I want to either drag this up or extrude upward. So I'm going to go back to edit form. So let's go by all again. If I select face, if I drag upward, see, it kind of drags everything around. So let's Control Z that. And what I instead want is I want to extrude upward, which remember, hold Alt and then move. Now there's a trick to this though. You press and hold Alt, and I'm just going to use the pan, which is just the square. Drag upward. Wait a minute, I didn't want to give it a duck butt. What happens is if you select a face that is against a mirror line and you also want the other side to be affected, but you don't want to give it duck butt here, you have to also select the edge. So if you're looking at it from the side, either make sure you select both faces and the edge, or use an all selection box. So from the right, selects in yellow. So it selects, so I'm selecting the face and that edge. So now when I press and hold Alt and drag outward, still divides it up, but now I don't get that split. So that's how you can avoid that. So from here, I'll scale that down a bit. Maybe now we'll use the scale tool here to flatten that a little bit. All righty. And now we can kind of pan this around, get a little bit closer. Let's angle the little tail, rotate it a little bit. There we go. Kind of getting somewhere now. Now maybe I want to just adjust just that edge, drag that inward a little bit. Maybe now drag the face and all. So a lot of this is going to just be playing around, like I said, scaling upward, whatever you want. There you go. Now, what if you instead want, and I'll hit OK. All right, great. But what if I want that little duck tail to actually be sharp? You would want to add a crease to that. So go to Modify, Crease, select those edges, and you see how sharp that got. You can keep selecting edges like down here, and it's going to make that crease even longer. It's going to go until the next vertex. Now, still going to blend, but that's how far it's going to extend. So I hit OK. Now you can see how sharp that is. Sometimes that's going to cause issues. It's up to you. If you decide, I don't really like that, you can obviously either Control Z, or if you've saved this and then you come back to it and decide you don't like that as much, go to Modify, right underneath Crease is Uncrease. Hit Uncrease, select that edge, softens it again. I'm just going to leave it split. I'm going to leave it sharp at the top, creased at the top, and softer right here. There you go. Now it's changing colors like that because the Form workspace does automatically recolor things or kind of leave visual ghosts and such. Because you don't have a history slider to work from, to reference to, it leaves those ghost images there so that way you can have a more clear idea of what you just did. Pardon me, just going to turn up the heat in here. There we go. Chili. Okay. All right. Got my little adorable ducktail. Ooh, sorry. All right. So obviously we can keep tweaking this body, all that kind of stuff, but let's get the body more complete, and then we can make more adjustments. So I'm going to save here. Butt body. Obviously, lots and lots still to do, but I just want to get a little bit further along first. So I want to start making the head. Now, depending on how you want to go about this, totally up to you. No really wrong or right way to do it. There's just more efficient ways. In this case, I'm going to use a sphere. So same tool, XY axis or ZY axis. There we are. And I'm going to put the sphere more or less in the middle of his head. There we go. Kind of giant, a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay. Now, if you had accidentally made the sphere in a different spot, you can always make this adjustment, rotate it however you need. Now, again, fewer faces makes for less complex work at first. Right now, it's 8 and 8. Let's dial that back to 6. I just want to simplify this a bit. I can always divide it up and add complexity later. Okay. Yeah, that works pretty well for me. Symmetry. Yep. Let's go ahead and add symmetry now. I need it by height as well. So you see, as I zoom in, might be hard to see. Let me shift colors. Oops. And it's not going to let me shift colors right in the middle of this. It's the same symmetry applied. Yeah, it's fine. There we go. Can't put a letter for a numeral. Hit OK. All right. You can always resize this. There we go. I just wanted to recolor it for a moment so you can slightly more easily see that green line. All right. So same deal here. So you can, of course, start adding the beak, stuff like that. Now, what I meant by if you have this aligned a different way, I intentionally want the axes vertices at either side because I'm going to use those to create the eyes. But you can obviously do whatever you want. If you accidentally had it the wrong way or not aligned that way, just hit move, rotate it to the alignment you need. Fine. But mine was good, so I'll just hit escape. There it is. All right, there we go. So from here, I can start squishing the body around. I can start making the bill. Sure, why not? Let's do that. So let's hit edit form. I want the face, but I also need to make sure I get that edge. So I want to use a selection box, select both those faces and the dividing edge, or sorry, the shared edge. So press and hold Alt, drag it outward. And for this one, I want to select all of those, and I'm going to scale it down. Whoop. Immediately starts to make it much more duck-billed. Play around with however you like. So again, I'm not asking you to make a form that is exactly like your canvas images. These are just references. If you want to freeform it, also good. So with something like this, yeah, that little bill works. I'm going to show you how we can also cut in later, but also say I wanted to make the bottom of this bill. Okay. Well, that's already a little bit too large of a face there, but I told you we can always add an edge. So double click there, and not quite in the center. I want to make it a little bit closer. Sure, that works. Hit OK. All right. Now, obviously, this is going to get a little bit funky for a minute, and then we'll adjust it. So form edit. I'm going to select by edge, drag this down a little bit. OK. Now I want to select by edge again, right there. And I'm going to drag this inward a bit. Now we kind of got like a little bit of a problem here, because if I drag it inward too far, oops, that's scaling. If I drag it inward too far, it starts to collapse on itself. So what might be a good idea, hit OK here, and let's put a crease there. Let's modify, crease, already creased that edge, it was already selected. Cool. Now let's try moving that edge, see what happens now. Oops, helps if I actually select the move. And more or less the same thing. So it might actually be what I need to do is divide again. Put another edge right there. Nope, I want that more or less right there-ish. Hit OK. All right, go back to edit form, grab that face and the edge, and let's extrude inward. Now, it looks like I didn't grab both of them, so let's Control Z that. From the side, select filter right in the center here, and extrude inward. I still made an unfortunate kind of sucker thing going here because what I don't have is an accompanying split edge out here. So this kind of thing might be better done by cutting a section away. So I'm just going to kind of rework that later. All right. So for that, oops, lost where I am. Let's shrink that back down and kind of work from it from there. So let's select back up here and just grab just that point. Now look at the difference of when I grab just that point. When I orbit over, all right, that one actually smoothed out pretty nicely. Sometimes you grab just a vertex, it gets a little sharp. Okay, so that actually is not bad. Problem is to see if I had wanted to add a division here, I would have needed to also add it over here as well. So this kind of thing gets a little bit awkward sometimes when you're trying to wrap stuff around a face or around a more complex shape. So we're going to use a face splitting tool later on. So let's focus on finishing out the rest of this here. So, all right. Oh, let's select back here by faces and such, dragging my little duck head around, and let's make it a little bit softer here at the bottom. Okay. A little bit of a caved in head, so let's drag that outward as well. Okay, there we go. Close enough. Now, the issue is going to be here, how do I connect these? Because this is perfectly easy to build these things separately, but you need to figure out how to connect them. All right, so let's save here. Head modeled. All right. Now, I do want to use the bridge tool to do this. Where is bridge? There we are. But bridge works off of faces and such much more effectively. Not as much on just open faces. So what I have found it works better is deleting some areas. So let's select on the bottom here, hit delete, and it rounds out that shape. I don't know why it's not holding the lines there when I orbit around. That's strange. Kind of big, but that's okay for now. Same thing here. Let's hit delete. Now that makes the hole way too big, changes it around. So let's Control Z that. And instead, I'm going to add an edge in. So add edge, or insert edge rather. And I'm going to put it in more of like up here. Okay. Reconfigure things a little bit. That's all right. We can still soften that stuff later. Now when I select that face, hit delete. There we go. Much smaller, much more reasonable size. Now, problem is the headpiece and all that such, you got them clipping between here. So all that means is I need to adjust that edge for the head. So I'm going to double click on that bottom edge there, and it selects the whole ring. Good. So now when I go to edit form, I can scale this, although that's way too much. Scale this down a little bit. And let's move it. They do not need to be touching, but they do need to be close. I'm gonna orbit that a little bit, so rotating it around a little bit, so you can see I'm getting these to kind of line up. They don't have to be exactly lined up, but they do kind of need to be lined up. All right, that seems to look okay-ish. Kind of a little funky. I got kind of a little weird thing going to the back of the head, but I could fix that later. That's it. Okay. All right, that possibly doesn't look half bad. All righty, so let's save here. I just want to save before and after, so you can see if need be. Now the thing with bridge, I'm going to modify. I always forget where it is. Bridge. You do have to have the same number of face edges. What I mean by that is, right now, you can see the selection here. I've got these edges. That's good. And of course, it's symmetrical. On the top here, looks like I have the same number. Even though this is a quad ball and the top is a sphere, I have 1, 2, 3, which means 6. 1, 2, 3, which means 6 at the bottom. Excellent. Okay, that's what I need. So let's select the top here, double click, side 2, double click. I think because I was selecting some things, it's throwing it off. There we go. So both sides are selected. There we are. Those arrows are going the same way. That's good. Hit preview. Now again, it's going to show me in simplified box view. That's okay. Now it's wanting to add 3 faces between there. That's a bit excessive. Let's dial that down. Oh, not down. Let's see what happens with 1. Let's hit OK. There we go. Actually, the 1 works pretty well. If you wanted more, go back and do more. Control Z and repeat. Double click one side, select for the other, double click that side. Let's try 2 faces. Hit OK. All right, slightly more complex, but still not bad at all. Okay, that works pretty nicely. So obviously got a lot of reshaping to do from the front. We got to make a lot of details, but you can very quickly see how you can actually very quickly start to model something like this. So let me hit save. Or let's see here, neck, bridge, done. All right. So let's take a quick pause and we'll start to do some more detail work. Alrighty, let's get back to some duck time. And we hop back into Fusion. Okay. So we've got our sort of kind of duck form. It kind of got a little bit messed up. That's okay. Oh, I do want to tweak this backside just a little bit more. Not that it has to match the shape at all, but just make it a little bit more round. So I'm gonna go back to Form Edit, and I'm gonna grab that face. Actually, I'm gonna grab all the things, and I'm gonna try scaling it first. There we go. So shrinking that by scale. Yep, that worked really nicely. So now I'm gonna grab both backside panels here, or both back faces, and then I can orbit it back a little bit. It's kind of giving it a little bit of a weird head. That's all right. Okay, I'm more or less okay with how this looks. Might want to kind of adjust, say, like that face there. Adjust it, something like that. You get the idea. All right. So I'm going to unhide one of my other canvases for the top, I think, just so I can look down and kind of reshape it, because it's kind of got like a little bit of a bar of soap situation, and I would actually like to make it kind of like extra round here. So what I'm going to do this is I'm going to use, again, Form Edit as the bin. I'm going to switch to vertices, and I'm just going to, doesn't matter if I'm working on what is currently the top or bottom, because those are left or right, they're mirrored. Let's select just those, and we orbit or pan outward here. And let's see how this works. Now, once you start working in other dimensions, you do kind of have to look around a bit more. So like right now, I kind of got like this tugboat thing going. So maybe I need to go ahead and open up the front view as well. All right, well, comparatively, actually their rubber duck is a lot wider. So maybe work with that. Maybe that'll be more effective. Now, right now, my canvas looks like it's not quite centered. So pick one or the other and work from it from there. So, all right, since I'm working through vertices, grab there, just kind of dragging these outward. There we go. Little duck battleship going here. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Extra wide at the bottom. Nice. Now, I'll be working with a canvas. Again, there's nothing saying it has to stick to what we're working with. Like, I don't know. It's got a really short neck. Let's select all the things here. And I didn't quite get the other ones too. Selection filters sometimes get a little bit difficult to grab stuff with. There we go. And let's drag all of that. Oh no, I missed some things. Oh no, oh no. Select my faces. I'm not getting everything there. Grab those. Let's see what happens with that. We'll make it a little bit of like a Duckosaurus here. There we go. Maybe you're making a plush turtle. I don't know. Start playing with stuff. Yeah, make it more interesting. Make it more fun. And kind of fix its chin a little bit here. That would be I don't know. Let's grab that edge right there. Drag that inward. Maybe rotate it. Oh, I don't know if rotating is doing much. Doesn't look like it. Strangely. Depends on where it's rotating from. Sometimes face rotation works better. You see where maybe work by faces, select that one. I don't know. Scale it down. See what happens. That kind of shrinks things. Drag that up. There we go. That works a little bit better. Now I've got my slightly unsettling long neck duck. Now you can keep playing with so much stuff. Like right now, this is a really kind of offset head. Obviously, fixing like this neck piece here, that would really help. Again, edit form. Everything's edit form, it seems. I don't know, select by that face. Drag it out that way. I don't know. Maybe select that edge and move that outward. Yeah, that sort of thing. Just playing around with this. All right, enough mucking about. So we have this here. We got my long neck duck, and we're just gonna go ahead and hide all the canvases because it's time to go off images here. So one of the things I do want to do is let's add some wings. All right. Well, looking at my reference, gotta unhide my canvases. So it's gonna have some sort of like little adorable little wings built in. Now there's a variety of different ways you can go about doing this. Now right now we've got the finished form, or close to right here. What will probably make sense to do late is actually do that afterwards. So maybe instead, let's work on fine-tuning the face here. So let's go back to the front. And right now, yeah, head kind of looks a little goobery, but I don't know, not too bad. We've got what will become the eyes just right here. Maybe what I want to do is actually divide this up even further. So let's do like a insert edge, and this time we're going to do it on something round. So I'm going to double click on that right there, and you can see how it's already going to start adding edges here. Perfect. And right where it is, yeah, that's not bad at all. It's going to divide it up a little bit more, but that's going to work nicely because things like what I could do is I can drag stuff out, or let's add a crease to that line there. I have to go through and select each of these. There we go, though. You'll see how now it's much sharper there. Good. I want that. Works for me. Hit OK. All right. So now go back to edit form. Let's go by faces, and let's actually hang on a second. Actually, we'll do by all. Go to front, and I'm going to select all the ones that are inside of that crease. Let's try extruding it. Press and hold Alt, drag outward. All right, now we're starting to get like some kind of like hammerhead shark nightmare thing. Now the problem is I made that sharp edge there, and it is extruding that sharp edge more. So I want to avoid that. So let's Control Z that, and let's instead just select it by the inside. So just those edges and such there. There we go. So let's try that. Extrude, Alt. There we go. So granted, I'm getting kind of a little bug-eyed here, but what this is going to let me do is divide these up by faces a little more effectively later. But, you know, keep playing with this. Select by edge. Let's go ahead and double-click that sharpened edge there, and let's drag that inward a little bit. Granted, this has kind of turned into a little bit of like a stress ball looking little like thingy, but yeah, you can see now playing with the eyes, what will become the eyes a little more effectively. Now, a lot of these lines aren't necessarily going to translate to a finished form, but we'll deal with that when we get there. So if that's the case, double click there, and let's try scaling that. Scale outward. That's starting to round that out a little bit. So that's really why I wanted to make that crease there, so I get a sharp line to delineate the eyes. Again, these are pretty serious bug eyes, but I don't dislike them. They're a little unsettling, but that's okay. Let's go by select all, and I want to select all the upper there, and just kind of drag that in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's a little more rounded, but I still have that sharp edge. Maybe now select just that vertex there in the center. Zoom in. Oops. Just to that one. Bring that in a little bit. Oops. What is going on here? Oh. Control Z. Looks like I am grabbing not just that. All right. So the problem is right here, you also have to grab some of the control points. So if you run into that and it's doing some funky stuff, just select more around it. So just dragging that in. Now, one of the things here is it jumps by a full millimeter each movement. So maybe 1 is too much. So let's try -0.5 or -0.5. Oops, -0.5. So there we go. That's a little bit closer. Still kind of a little bit round, but it kind of sharpened it too much. So let's Control Z that and maybe switch our soft modifications back on. We haven't played with that much this project. So let's select just that vertex from there and look at the effectiveness range. Range is pretty large, so let's shrink that to like 5 millimeter range. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to see this when I use switch auto color. So let's try that now. Now you might be able to see the selection a little more effectively. Yeah, there you go. See the red diffusing to white. It's still a little bit large, so maybe let's bump that up to like 8 millimeter range. All right, that's softening it a little bit. There we go. Little less impactful, a little bit smoother. So these are the kind of things that you're going to have to like just kind of play about with and such. Now, one of the other things you could run into is what if, you know, that thing's making a really weird point. I don't like that. So maybe what you should do is delete those faces and collapse them a bit or something. Meaning that if this point is just too sharp for you, delete these faces And we'll go ahead and just select all of these. Chop them out. What's going on? Failed to split due to symmetry. Well, yeah, I'm selecting all of them, so delete them all. Delete. Rounds it out. Kind of, now it's a hollow shape. So how do you fix a hole like that? Real easy. Go to modify. Excuse me. Fill hole. It's pretty straightforward. Select that edge, so double click that edge. Now you have some options here, and see what just happened. It reshaped like everything. Kind of problematic there. But you have reduce star, you have fill star, which gives it a really weird thing, and collapse, which kind of gives you right back to where you were. But it smoothed out that point. You do want to check weld center vertices. Sometimes you get some problems. Or, look what just happened when I said weld center vertices. It kind of angled everything out. I don't really like that. So uncheck it. Keeps it rounded. Okay. Just a thing. If you wanted to delete some faces and replace them, just close them up. Say maybe you made a whole bunch of stuff here. Maybe you extruded some eyes all over the place. You don't like where they are. Delete those, and then just use a fill hole to close them back up. So, all right, I'm not too bothered by that. That looks kind of fun. You can certainly, and I'll save this, eyes modeled. You can certainly start playing with some more stuff. I don't know. This kind of looks like maybe it should have a crest or something. I don't know. Let's add in an edge. I'm going to select, I don't know, just kind of keep going. Yeah. And I want it on both sides. And I want to split the faces much closer together. Okay. I kind of like that. Hit OK. All that did is just added some faces there. Okay. So what I'm going to do, edit form by edges, and I'm going to select several right there in the center. And what I'm going to do with that, drag it outward. Oop, wrong direction. Very much wrong. Oh, no, that was right. Oh, I accidentally deselected my selection there. I wanted to scale that up a bit. There we go. So, like I said, you play around with this. There's nothing saying you can't just move all of this stuff around. Now, looks like I did run into something I accidentally did. I have it's clipping through right here. So I'm going to hit OK because I want to show you what's going to happen. Because obviously you're going to get to a point. I'm going to go back to auto color mode here. Shift in so you can see a little more clearly. So I've got a clipping issue here. So let's just say, you know what? I like where that is. I'll save it before I do this. Head crest. Okay. So at some point, you're going to have to hit finish form. Let's see what happens. Exactly what I expected. Going to get an error because these are currently collapsing in on one another. They're intersecting. They're clipping through. So the issue here, faces may be crossing, review in box mode. Okay. So hit return. So it's not going to let you go into finish form just yet. Yeah, I hear you. So one of the things you can do, and this is the same as if you start getting too complex with a shape and it gets kind of visually confusing, switch visual modes. You got the utilities, the display mode. This is what it's showing you each time we've used like bridge, and it shows you those blocky lines around everything. Bring up utilities. Obviously, we're selecting this whole thing. There you go. Currently, two selected. It's in smooth mode. You have box mode, and it just simplifies to a bit more of a geometric shape design. Or you have the hybrid where you can kind of see both. So box mode, it's going to show you, let me click this line here. this edge, see how it is collapsing down into the shape? Obviously, that's a problem. So you can leave it visually like this to help you simplify what you're doing. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Go to Edit Form. I want to select that edge there, and I'm going to use the scale right in the middle to shrink it. All right. That brought it back up and out. Now, it looks like I might still have some problems here, and we're going to see what we can do about it. But right now, I'm just going to pan that upward a little bit. So there we go. Okay. Now, the problem here is it looks like it's still an issue in here. So you have some options here. You got these odd faces. You can try to fix it. This might be best to just delete. So let's hit OK. I'm going to select these faces here. Just delete. All right. Now that obviously is going to leave me with some holes, and I got to fix those. So maybe go back to utility mode and smooth. See if it shows them to me a little bit more clearly. It does. So what I probably should have done when I originally did that extrude, or when I originally drug everything out to make that crest, I probably should have sharpened it a little bit, or just selected one more down the line. But this is where we can use a bunch of different tools here. Remember making the knife, we used weld vertices. Rather than try to close this up, maybe I could just like sew these two vertices together. Let's see where that gets us. A lot of this is just going to be like trial and error. So let's try weld vertices. That one to that one. That's going to go to display mode because that's making it complex again. But that's something. All right, that kind of closed it up. Now, obviously, we're going to have some problems down here. So let's try that. I'm just working the problem at this point. So it is now refusing to come back out of smooth mode. Probably because, yeah, this is just so angular, it's just confusing everything. So, you know, sometimes you run into problems that you made in the first place. All right, let's try grabbing a vertex there, and let's just try moving that around. Now, you cannot just use move and such. You do still have to use edit form. Move is still for moving the entire thing as a single entity. So let's go to edit form. Let's just go by vertex. So it looks like they've got one stuck down in there. And let's just drag that backwards. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. See how I've created this hole down here? All right. Now that is something I can work with. Okay. We've got this multiform, so I could do stuff like weld vertex, but I'm going to run into a problem because there's not matching pairs to work with. You can try welding more together, but see where it gets you. I think what I'm going to do is just use a fill hole tool. So let's go to modify, and I always miss it, fill hole. Double click this edge. There we go. Now that just overcomplicated stuff, but we're getting somewhere. We have the collapse, we have reduce star, and fill star. It looks like reduce star works the best in this case. See how I closed everything up? Try if you want, keep creases. That's going to keep it sharp. It's up to you. If you want it to stay rounded, don't check that box. Let's hit OK. All right, that looks like I actually patched everything. Looks like it. We're going to see where that gets us. So let's set finish form. Still a problem. All right. Topologies, modify utilities, repair body. All right. So one of the other things, I'm not seeing what the problem is. So if you can't see it, what you need to do is go to utilities, not just the display mode, but you need to go to the next one down, repair body. This is where the program takes over and tries to fix what you're not seeing. So let's click that, obviously selecting this body, and it uses the star points and such to show you tight points and edges and such. And I'm not sure what the problem is. So what you can do, first, or the second option down, is auto repair. Let's try it. All right, not sure what it did. I think what it did is it just brought the point that was holding this crest out in space, I think it merged the two together there. All right. Well, it fixed it. So that works. Hit OK. Problem is look what it did to the face. Mangled the face. Let's try finish form and at least see if it gets us out of here. Okay, there we go. So it did get us out of there, but the face kind of got a little bit lumpy. So there's that. We can always go back in, just like with everything else. Right click on the form, go to edit. You're back into the form workspace. All I want to do is I want to try and fix that kind of lumpy head thing right back there. So go to edit form, grab that vertex. I'm just going to drag that inward a little bit. Hopefully that didn't make it extra lumpy. Kind of looks like it smoothed it a little bit. Let's hit OK. Finish form. Okay, there's still a little lump, but I'm okay with that. Just playing around. So another dino duck. So all right, save and exit, finish. Oops. Finish form. All right, so now we're just back in our regular workspace. So this is where I wanted to show you some options for how you can make a wing or something here. So at this point, what I want to do is because I want to show you two different things. Duck 01, and I'm going to copy paste to make a pair of them. Hit OK. Okay. Now, so for number one, I want to go back in, edit form, and this is where you can start to play on the surfaces themselves and such. You can sketch, of course, but some cool things you can do is work on faces, that sort. You can actually create faces wrapping around an existing form. So I just have to work on this side, and you click this object snap, and it's going to snap to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try just drawing on the surface. And you have to do it in sections of 4 edges. Now it's not wanting to snap on there, so I might have had to build it. I might need to build this off the surface. So, all right, well, if it's going to give me this trouble, it looks like that might be a little bit too complex right now. I'm just going to Control Z that. It wasn't immediately working how I hoped it would. Sometimes it works on complex forms better than others. So let's just ignore that. I'm going to jump over to the other one, what I wanted to show you to begin with. So this is the second version. Tell you what, just to help them keep them extra separated, I'm going to make this in a separate component entirely. There we go. Now it's duck 2. All right. So the easiest thing to do on this one is I'm going to draw a sketch on an offset plane and project it to the surface. That's pretty much it. So let's first create a construction plane, just somewhere off. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be an even number or anything like that. Create a sketch. And I'm just going to draw what I kind of think should be a little bit of a duck wing here. Now, you don't want to make this too complex, but, you know, maybe I should have made that a little bit better. Yeah, something to that effect. That's kind of wonky, so let me adjust this a little bit. There we go. So this is, of course, floating in space. We're good. All right, that works pretty well. Okay, so you have a couple of options here. What you can do is you can use this to split the faces here. So that would be, split body, that section, my splitting tool is here. And you do want to make sure that that extends all the way through. We're good. Hit OK. And now, when I open this up, you've got like a insert chunk. So it's just that cross section there. So you could use something like that and then like scale it. So they're just projecting it outward. That's all. So something like, I have to figure what scale is. There we are. That body, and I don't want a uniform. I want a non-uniform. I just want to drag it outward. Now, the problem with that is obviously you're going to get some weird distortions and you have to move it. So that's one option.
My fusion just crashed.
What's that?
My fusion just crashed and I didn't save it.
Always save. Start with a save.
Oh, indeed.
There we go. So, oops, meant to do. Move that body. There we go. What's going on here? Dang it. Come on. There we go. So obviously this way of doing this, it doesn't really work great because there's too much stuff you got to deal with. So I would not recommend using this method. I just want to show it to you. It's a way you can work. It's going to work better when to make the mouth. So I'm just going to Control Z back before we split that. Okay, so now we've got this. So the other thing you can do is you can project to surface and split the face itself. So that will split body, making it a whole separate body. What you can do here is, again, instead, split face. So that's, I need to select all the faces this is going to involve. It's kind of like one of those anti-robot things. And my splitting tool here, that's going to go all the way through. So one of the problems is you do want to make sure that you're selecting both sides here. So I didn't do that. So let's do that real quick. Well, I want to make sure to select both sides. So let's use just a straight through selection box. And those two. All right, it's turning multiple colors because it's just doing it for things. All right. Oh my God. Sometimes you just redo that. Split face. There we go. So I'm using a full selection box here, grabbing those. Oh, come on. There. So that is grabbing both sides. My splitting tool, my little drawing there, I can deselect the extend tool. It just needs to go through both sides. Good, good. Split type, yeah, split surface. If you want to play with the long vectors, that's not really necessary in this case, but stay with that one. There we go. Hit OK. Now I have those individual faces. Now they're kind of split up like that. In this kind of makes it a little bit more complex. So it's because I made the little duck form a little too complex. But now I have these faces. Why does it keep displaying that way? Very strange. Sorry, I'm just trying to select the faces here, and my selection is giving me problems. I want to make sure to grab that one. Okay, there we go. Did I get everything? Can't tell because it's doing this weird selection thing. All right, so I got all of that. So what we can do now is technically extrude, but we're going to try to use the press pull here, see if that works. And it does, but see how it projects outward terribly. Doesn't work great. But that's essentially what we're going to use to build this outward. So this is why I was saying, like, a lot of this might be better off done within the edit form space. So kind of some weird stuff. Essentially what this is doing, the same thing. I use the press pull. It's kind of an omni tool. It's the same thing as offsetting the face, but we can try that too. Let's select all those same faces. Zoom in. There we go. Drag outward a little bit, let that effect. There we go. So same deal. It's just dragging it outward there. Works well enough. Let's say 2 millimeters. Fine. Oh, there we are. So the problem with this is why it's projecting outward in all directions is it's an offset tool. So it's going out in all directions relative to the face there. But what you can do is you can use a fillet and round this over a little bit. So let's do that. Fillet tool. And we'll just do the whole face. And I did 2 millimeters, so let's try at least 1. There we go. So at least doing that, you can round some stuff back out. Now the reason I only did 1 with a 2 millimeter offset is I still want to try to round out this section here. So I'll hit OK. My computer's slowing down badly. Just closing some things, see if it'll help. Okay. And we'll do another fillet. And I want to grab that edge. So that is the bottom edge going all the way around. So let's try 1 millimeter for that also. It was a 2 millimeter total offset, so 1 and 1. Sorry, it's taking a while. All right, so there we are. It's giving me an error. If you try to make these little offsets too complex, it won't work sometimes. So let's try less than 1. So do 0.5, do a 0.5 millimeter. Come on. All right, that worked. So the only reason I'm doing that is just to round out this shape a little bit. That's all. I'll hit OK. So obviously you can do that to both sides. Next class, we're going to show you some a few other ways you could do that. All right. So the 2 last things I wanted to show you are how to use the split body to cut sections away, and then we'll go over the appearances. So I'm going to do a sketch on that floating on that construction plane, which of course it hid, because might as well just use one that's already floating out there. What? No, capture position. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. And I'm just going to start somewhere in here. I'm just going to make like a little triangle shape here. There we go. Hit OK. Because I'm going to use this triangle, and I'm just widening it, stuff like that, to cut a section away. And that might work. Finish sketch. So again, same thing. Sketch is floating out in space, but it's in front of the little duckbill. I'm going to use split body. So select split body here. Select the main. My splitting tool is that little triangle I just selected. There we go. It's floating out in here. And it's going to chop right through the face. Hit OK. And hey, little face. So that's a really easy way you can make. Sorry, this is a little bit goofier looking than I thought it would be. So that's a different way you can use to use a split body just to cut sections away. All right, so let's save there. Split body. All right. So the last thing on this would just be switching to appearance mode and hitting the appearance key. So the thing with this is you can apply appearances, remember, to the whole body, or we haven't gotten to this yet, but on apply to, at the top of the toolbox, you have bodies and components, which is everything as one, or by faces, or you can do both. So let's select a color here. We'll use paint and we'll use glossy. Oops, not downloaded yet. So hit the little download key and let's drop glossy enamel over the whole thing. Yellow ducky. All right. Now I want to apply some to the faces. I want to use the faces themselves as dividing tools. All right. So let's switch to the toolbox to faces. And now this does get some tricky sometimes, that I want to use red here. And I want to drag it onto faces themselves. You see how this is going to work. But obviously that's going to get really tedious. So what you could do is use the selection tool and select multiple faces at once. Okay, I think my computer is getting very confused right now. Yeah, see, it's trying to select everything. Ugh. There we go. So I'm just working my way around, selecting faces. I was hoping I could just do a selection box, but it was selecting everything at once. So you see how it is selecting those sections. Now, outlined in blue is where it starts and stops. So inside won't make that color. So let's try that. Selection is over there. Drop the red on. There we go. So now it colored the whole thing up to the line. You could use white for the eyes. Obviously, that's going to get problematic. So let's try to use a selection filter here. Now, see, it's still selecting everything. Oh. All right, I guess we're going to have to go through and do this by hand. And for whatever reason, what I'm working on keeps disappearing. Just working my way around, selecting all the things. Yeah, see, I'm getting some odd filter, some odd computing situation. If you run into stuff like this, where it's just like suddenly doing just strange things, you should definitely stop and restart the program. This is definitely doing some strange things. So I'm gonna drag and drop over there. Yeah, see, instead it applied it to everything when I had those individually selected. So give me a moment. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to restart Fusion. Okay, we're back. All right. So the old turn it off and turn it on again. Let's try that again. So turning on the appearance mode again. I want my yellow rubber ducky or rubber whatever this is now. I'm going to try. Yeah, see, now it's responding properly. It's still not letting me select individually. Yeah, see, it's still doing some odd things there. Jeez. All right. So unfortunately, I'm having to select the faces individually, just really obnoxious. And I don't know what's with that squiggly line selection thing there. Oh, well, that helps. I had faces off. It does actually help if you have the face selection filter active at the moment. I do. Now what? Okay, so now it's not applying the color at all. All right. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here. It's definitely doing some stuff that it's not supposed to be doing. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the program right now. There. Again, you run into stuff that it's definitely supposed to be doing something and it's not. There's a problem. So I did want to tack on a couple last things here. You can use the split body if you intended to like print this and you wanted this to have a flat bottom. Really simple thing to do is you can either draw a line or use a construction plane. Doesn't matter. And In this case, I'm going to, we'll do a sketch. I'm going to do it on that same floating construction plane. Or, you know what? No, we'll just use the XZ plane here. There we go. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line somewhere across the bottom. Flat line. There we go. That is it. Finish sketch. Because what I want to do with this, make sure that's active. I want to split the body. Obviously, that's the body. My splitting tool is that line. And see how it's got a red ring around the bottom? Hit OK. Chopped it into two more, or chopped it up again. But now I just have a flat bottom there. So if you wanted to print this, make it flat, that's a really easy thing to do. You can, of course, make that a little bit rounded, the bottom itself. We'll add a fillet to that bottom. Why not? I don't know, 2 millimeter fillet, just throwing something in there. Let's make it a little bit more larger, 5. That might interfere with stuff. Yeah, there you go. See, slightly more rounded body, or rounded bottom. There you go. Easy way to work that way. Hit OK. Okay. Again, I'm not sure why the appearance tool isn't working properly, or at least it's not working properly for me at the moment. Excuse me. But that's pretty much it. Thing is, it's very open-ended. You do need to apply appearances as they need to be, but this is definitely one way of doing it. Next time, I'm going to show you slightly more complex ways, like adding more bodies into the object to create things like the eyes and stuff like that. But I wanted to show you just a quick overview of how you can do like adding more edges and things like that, just to quickly cut the faces up more, just to add complexity to an already simple form. Joining two different forms in the form space using the bridge tool, just more complex shapes, that sort of thing. So we'll show some more stuff next time. But I just wanted to be able to show everybody quick little thing here. Again, wanted to show you the appearance tools, but something is definitely not working right. I'll have to play with that a bit more. And we'll go from there. So we'll finish this out. Hopefully this works. So play around with it, go from there. Oops, wrong button.